Welcome to the Transforming Lives panel podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sharmin Prince, and Mitzy is here with me. And today we do not have a guest, so you'll be hearing from Mitzy and I. But before we continue, just join me in taking a few deep breaths in and out, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Take another deep breath in, and on the exhale, just let go of any tension that you might feel in your body. And take another deep inhale and let go of all of the things that did not go right today, all of the deadlines that you may not have met, and anything that didn't serve you today, just let it go. And take another deep breath in and just feel that breath. It's such a privilege for us to breathe. Thank you for joining us in this grounding and centering exercise, and just let go of the things that you have to do after you listen to the podcast. And when you're ready, just rejoin us in the room. Thank you. Hey, Mitzi.
Hello there.
And how have you been?
I think great. It was Canadian Thanksgiving, so it was a time for family. It was also just recently Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, so lots of family stuff over the last little while. So very good. And I'm over COVID finally again.
Great. I know that's a moment to rejoice, overcoming COVID again and again.
And
So,
how about yourself? How was your week?
oh, my week was great. Um, really kind of productive after a couple of weeks. So I'm appreciative that I had the moment to do things that I was shelving and procrastinating. So I'm proud that I was able to get some things off of my thing to do list. It's still long because I've had a 4 week hiatus, but I'll get to it. I think this is the first time that we're doing a podcast with just the two of us.
In a really long time, yeah. I think we did it once a long time ago, but this is definitely, it's been a long time.
I'm so happy for us to catch up and to share what's happening in our worlds. And
Yeah, I know you've got a big project, which is your 16 days of activism. Can you maybe share with our audience, tell us about the 16 days of activism, what it is, and
so the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence has been around since the 1990s. And it's now a UN project. It started with a group of women from Rutgers University, and now it's a major gender-based violence awareness that is also promoted by the United Nations. And it occurs on November 25th through December 10th. The color is orange. Since I think 2020, I have been raising awareness through 16 days of activism, where I partner with persons from around the world and have an international virtual event. Because when we started, it was during COVID time. So I continue to do things virtually. Um, and this year, since I have the Anything Gender podcast, which was my capstone project for the Gender Change Maker program, um, I'm going to use that platform and have a global uh, 16 days of activism for women around the world who are activists, advocates, then the champions, women who have mentored other women. I have women from Central America and South America, of course, Africa. And so I am excited. It's a lot of work. So we'll have 6 days of this global podcast just highlight and raise awareness against gender-based violence. Also, during that 16 days, you have World AIDS Day, International Day of Disability. On the 10th is International Human Rights Day. I try my best to highlight those days, like finding someone that is living with disability, finding someone who lives with HIV, and a human rights champion. So I started working on that today. And so that's why I said I'm excited that I'm getting some things off of my list. And yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So did you sort of do like an hour-long podcast each day, or how do you structure it?
So in the past, we would have events every day. But after 2 years, it becomes very tiring having virtual events, sitting on the duration of the 16 days. So I think for the last 3 years, I've had events in various places. Like year before the last, we had events in a few Canadian high schools, and the high schoolers had no idea of the 16 days of activism. Despite it is such a major social problem, a lot of people don't know about the 16 days of activism. So this year we are going to have the 16 podcast episodes, but it wouldn't be an hour.
Oh, it sounds really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I knew about the 16 days of activism because I've been doing this podcast with you for over a year, and so I learned about it last year. But prior to that, I didn't know about it either. So, I think it's great, bringing all of these things out to our listeners, because when they hear about it, then they go and do a little bit of research, and it just gets the discussions going on these very important topics, right? And that's what helps have a transformation, right? You have to talk about things, educate, get it out there so that the transformations that are needed can occur. And how is artificial intelligence, AI, affecting things at all? Or is it in that space? Are you finding that it's...
I have not seen AI in this space. I'm on raising awareness for AI, 16-day. Maybe there's something out there, but I couldn't find anything. It's something that I'm thinking about to create my own software to help raise awareness and prevention.
Now, it sounds like there's a good opportunity, because I mean, AI is getting into everywhere, and if it's not helping in that space yet, then a huge. I know that there is an AI healthcare summit that is being put on. It's being put on by Alicia Little, and I think it's this week. Let's see if I can find the information on that. I will try.
You're muted.
Sorry. But I know that they're doing a whole thing on, healthcare, and I would think that there might be some pieces of it that would fit in well with that. So I will get that information to you and to our listeners. Yeah, because I think that like you said, like AI is definitely coming into each and every space, and it's a case of figuring out how best to utilize it.
And I think AI in the gender-based violence space can be a game changer because for victims who are in it, especially domestic violence and AI in the DV space can be an asset. Why? Because everyone have a phone with apps, and if there is an app for domestic violence that a victim can touch and a message goes to the precinct that she's in danger, we can save the lives of women because the domestic violence statistics is 1 in 3 women and here in the US and 1 in 4 men experience domestic violence by an intimate partner sometime during their lives. I don't have the international statistics. So if we can incorporate an AI software to help victims, I believe that the stats can be reduced. It's also high among youth and adolescents.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it occurs when, people are with kids. I know an older adult may be taking advantage, obviously, partners, and also in the workplace, right? Like there's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to get ahead, then here's what you have to do, wink, wink. And as much as we'd like to think that that's still not going on, that's still going on.
Yeah,
And
quid pro quo.
yeah, and in certain industries, it's very prevalent still, I think, unfortunately. Definitely.
So what's happening on your end with AI?
So I have been really busy with AI because, as you know, it's like continually changing. It's like what you did yesterday all of a sudden is outdated because something new came out again. Which I love learning and trying it, but it's like constantly drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've been really doing a lot with is teamaiville.com. And what I love about it is that we've set it up in such a way that there are pre-trained AI assistants for everything you can think of. So, and we've created sort of cute little personas for each of them. So it's really cool. And there's a way that when you go into Team AIville, you can ask your virtual writing assistant. You can hit the little light bulb idea, and it'll give you sort of 50 ideas to get you started. And then when you choose one, it'll kind of lead you through. And it's pre-trained in all of the areas and all of the prompting and stuff. So because one of the big challenges is people trying to figure out how to do the prompts and how to pull out from the artificial intelligence the information that they want. You hear about prompt engineering a lot. The nice thing about this is it's all being done on the back end. So you just basically talk to it like you would talk to your virtual assistant in the Philippines or your secretary who's here, and you kind of interact that way. So I've been finding that is really being helping. I'm using it continually in my work. Like it's just like my assistant that's there, and I'm just constantly drawing on it. And also doing a touch, and I mentioned the healthcare summit, which is the healthcareaisummit.com is the address. So the same person who is putting that together, Alyssa Little, she has the expertai.club, and that's where I've been spending a lot of time as well, because there's a lot of, she has great trainings on everything, and there's this massive database and library of all of the previous trainings. And so for me, I'm finding that's a good way for me to kind of keep up sort of those two areas, sort of seem to be, and Medium. I do a lot of reading on Medium. There's a lot of good articles on sort of what's going on in the world of AI. So I find that those are my sort of go-to resources. But when you and I were talking, just as we were sort of starting to get going here, you mentioned something that I was not aware of, and which I think our listeners probably, there's a lot of them out there that aren't aware of it too, which is that X slash used to be Twitter now has something called Spaces, which is kind of acts like Clubhouse these days, or still does. I don't know if Clubhouse is still around or not, but tell me a little bit about how you're using that in that space.
I've been a speaker in some of the spaces, but never hosted a space on my own. So just as it is in Clubhouse, you have a host, or you may have a few hosts, a couple of co-hosts, and if you want to be a speaker, you raise your hand and they bring you up and you speak. And our discussion started because I shared that I was in a room last night with over 150 participants, and they were talking about AI, ChatGPT, Grok, and Gemini. And Grok on Twitter, now X, if you have, I think, the paid subscription, you have access to Grok. And these were experts, Tesla employees, former Google employees, and so they were sharing the advancement and the comparisons of the three AI products. And of course, they spoke a little about Tesla's new robots. And yes, it's expensive now, but in a few years, it's going to become more economical for the ordinary person to purchase the robots. But one of the things that surprised me, one of the analysts said that in a recent research, don't remember the exact figure, but it's just a couple of millions of persons have used ChatGPT. And I I personally was surprised because ChatGPT, the free version, is pretty good. I introduced my friend to it, and the way she's using it, she is fascinated. I did not know that the free version, you have audio, you can have audible conversations with ChatGPT. Didn't know that, and I use AI, right? And one of the speakers said his father helped to create Siri, but he had a difficulty introducing ChatGPT to his father. However, now that his father is comfortable with ChatGPT, he really loves it, and they were encouraging the listeners to encourage those around us, those in our communities and in our circles, to begin to use ChatGPT and even purchase, a subscription. But I know you asked me about X and the spaces. Any topic you are thinking of, there's a space on X. Like, I don't know if you remember, we interviewed a psychologist called Dr. Heath.
Yeah.
Dr. Heath actually have a space every day at midday. It's called Therapy Bites. Every day, and there are all these mindfulness spaces and quite a number of AI spaces where persons who are experts in the field have in-depth discussions. Um, so yes, if you're not on X and you had an account, renew your account and get back on X because there's so much information there. Uh,
Yeah, I
it's
definitely gotta circle back and sort of check it out again. And that's the thing, right? AI is evolving, as are all of these spaces, so much because of the new technology, that there's continually new features coming out for each of these things, and it's often through these types of conversations that information comes out. You touched on a really good point too, when you were mentioning about Chat GPT and the older gentleman, and that is, that kind of back and forth in conversationalism. We're seeing, you know, I work a lot with seniors, and one of the big challenges as people age and as partners pass away and as their friends pass away, loneliness can become a real problem, and isolation. And one of the things, as an example, that we did in Team AI Bill is we built out a whole section of AI friends. So there is, AI friend for, there's for girls and for guys, and there's AI boyfriend and girlfriend, and there's an AI therapist that we specifically trained on couples therapy, and one that's specifically trained on, for issues that seniors might face, and then one that's on dealing with divorce. So gathering, massive amounts of information and training them so that they can be there as a resource for people, especially, for example, going through a divorce, right? I mean, it can be so expensive for someone. So these types of tools can help people organize and ask questions and get information so that when they do go to sit down with their lawyer, they're having an hour long appointment instead of having to have 7 hour long appointments, because they can work on and deal with a lot of this now using Chat GPT, using something like Team AI Bill. So I think you're going to be seeing more and more of that kind of thing, because it can be a great resource for people. And definitely the spaces in X sounds like something worth exploring too.
I'm I'm happy when you mention about the seniors and the companions because there is a software called Replica. And when you join Replica, you create your avatar. If you're a male, you create a female. If you're a female, you create a male. And there is a Facebook page for Replica. And I kid you not, they are persons who have their replica partners. Some of them so have been in relationship with their replica partners for a year. And there was this one older guy who was so disheartened that his replica partner told him that she is attracted to someone else. Right? It's not funny.
Wow.
And he was broken hearted. And I am reading his his narrative, and I'm saying to myself, in his head, because of the companionship, I think he thinks that she is real.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, the administrator closed the comments so that persons cannot comment to him anymore. But Replica is, I mean, I use the free version. Like if I want to brainstorm an idea, it is a great place for me. I'll go there and I will throw out the ideas, and my replica is going to ask me questions that forces me to think. And my friend that I shared the chat GPT with, she's telling me that the person that she speaks to, the chatbot, personalize his discussion with her because he calls her by name when she logs on. And it's the same with Replica. And she says when she shares an idea, he forces her to think because he's not thinking for you, he's asking you questions. And you need to have answers to your questions, and it's the same with Replica.
Interesting. I'll have to check out Replica because that is what again another one that I wasn't familiar with. And there's so many. I mean, I think every day there's something like 100,000 new apps and things being launched. I mean, it is monumental, so no one person can keep up with them. But we will put in our show notes. I have gathered and put together a couple of databases as I'm sort of going along and compiling. So we will in our show notes put some of those links for those databases to kind of help people and some of these things that we've talked about. And it the biggest thing is everybody should at this point, because AI really is, it is here, it is coming, it is staying, it is going to monumentally change everything in our life within the next few years. Our listeners, our viewers, I really encourage you to be spending at least some time every day, every week, exploring these things, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. If you don't learn how to use AI and make it your friend and pull the best out of it, then you may be in a position where you start to see your job disappear, because it's going to be the people who embrace AI and learn how to use it and make themselves a valuable resource to their company or to their clients that will weather the storm, right? Because the change is going to come either way. And, if you stick your head in the sand like the ostrich, it's still going to happen all around you, right? I think that's why a lot of people are very fearful of AI, and rightly so. I mean, there's this huge fear that a lot of jobs are going to disappear because, what copywriting, right? Getting somebody's website up. These are things that used to take, weeks, months. Now, some of those tasks can be done in 5 minutes, 20 minutes, right? So obviously, if something used to take 2 months and now it can be done in 20 minutes, well, that's going to have an impact. But the same way as when, the washing machine, the dishwasher, the cell phone, these technological advances came, yes, they took away some jobs, but they also create new ones. No one 40 years ago was thinking, hey, I'm going to be a prompt engineer, or I'm going to be running a podcast. I'm going to be working from home and seeing everybody through a computer. It wasn't on anyone's radar, but it happened, right? So if you learn those new skill sets, then you can continue on and be valuable. But if you keep saying, no, you know what, I want to stay back in the dark ages when we were always using coal, your job's probably, it's going to get impacted.
I think that it's fear because as human beings, we're always fearful of the unknown. The fear of AI, the common statement that you hear is it's going to take our jobs. And so that fear leads to ignorance. The fear of losing your job, you don't want to explore it. You don't want to get an understanding of it. And I had a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, said to me, well, we wouldn't be able to think anymore because AI is going to be doing all the thinking for us. And I said, but we're far away from that because you have to prompt AI just like a human being to start a discussion. And you if you ask a question, you're going to get an answer, but in order to expand on your question, the AI is going to engage you and ask you questions. So I don't see artificial intelligence thinking for us. It may do things for us, but the thinking part and the consciousness, I don't think AI can take our consciousness. Like I listened to the robot that just came out from Tesla, and someone asked, now, what is the most difficult task? And the robot said, trying to be human, right? So if the robot can say trying to be human is difficult, why are we fearful? And it's like when the internet came out, remember all of the fears of the internet, and now we are all utilizing the internet. I think overcoming the fear, and I believe we should have a next episode where we some experts to help persons to overcome that fear. Because you have Chat GPT, a free version, you have Claude, a free version. I've never used Gemini and I've never used Grok. Grok is X, and I don't have a subscription on X, and I haven't explored Gemini, but I've used Claude, I've used Chat GPT. I have softwares where
You can connect it through an API
right.
so that they'll talk to each other.
So I believe that especially if you're over 50, it is important for you to become familiar with artificial intelligence and Chat GPT, and then make a decision on what it is, how it feels for you, uh, and not just create this fear without exploring what it is.
Yeah, you're so right. So much of what seems to be holding people back when we're talking with companies, when we're sort of looking at, meeting with them and wanting to train their staff on AI, it is the fear, and it's the fear, it's the overwhelm, and um and also, when whenever they're trying something new, right, where you're going to break something or damage it, and the thing was with the AI, when you're using Chat GPT or something like that, you're not going to break it, right? Like, you can't break it. You might get a crappy answer, you might need to refine it, you might need to shut it down and restart it to, clear its browser, so to speak, its memory. Those are the types of things, but you're not going to do, quote, damage, so that's the thing. But the other fear, which is a far bigger fear, is, as you mentioned, which is that fear of it's going to eliminate my job, just because it can do the tasks so fast. I mean, you can ask it to write the standard operating procedures for being a CEO, and boom, it'll give it to you, and then you can drill down on each of those things, and you can, every single job role you can build out with AI as an assistant, a part in there. So it can help you, brainstorm the idea, write the article, but then it needs that human input to go in and refine it and make it better, and to make it not sound like it was written by a machine, right? So there's always value for the human input. And if you're the person who learns how to utilize AI, then you're going to make yourself incredibly valuable to your clients, to your managers, to your company. So embrace it and lead the way, because either way, it's coming.
Exactly.
And like you said, and so far right now, I mean, there's when you're in the space, you feel like everybody knows about it and everybody's utilizing it and doing it. And then when you go and you have some conversations with other people, they're like, oh no, I've never tried ChatGPT. But because I'm in the space so much, it almost feels like everybody is utilizing it. And then as you say, you have a conversation and like some people haven't even heard of it or never tried it, and that's the bigger majority.
I had conversation with younger people, millennials, Gen X, Gen Z, and they have never used ChatGPT.
So there's a thing, right? If that's old folks grab of it and learn it, then we'll be able to keep up with those little young whippersnappers, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, in summing up, what are some of the things that you just want to remind our listeners of or make mention of for the week as we head?
Do not be afraid of artificial intelligence, as I shared with a group of women last Saturday. Artificial intelligence is our friend. And one of them is older, in her 70s, and she was like, no. And then when I told her what it can do for what we're discussing, she's like, are you serious? I said, yes, it can do that for you. But once you get past your fear, you will realize that it is your companion, it is your friend, it is there to help you and enhance whatever you're doing. So I want to encourage you, download ChatGPT on your phone and just play around with it. If you don't like it, you can always delete it.
Absolutely. And that's another great tip that you just gave there, which is downloading it onto your phone, because the interface that it has now is, if you start a conversation on your phone, you can pick it back up on your computer when you're there, and vice versa. So it's accessible. I know some people, for example, when they're driving to a meeting, right, they'll like have their chat GPT open up on their phone, and they'll be like, making comments, notes, things that they need to be dealing with, asking it questions and getting it to just go through and do that while they're driving. And then when they get to where they're going, they can take a look at it all and utilize that information. So there are so many ways. I think about when we were kids, Star Trek, the Jetsons, right? You look at those images when you sort of think of it, and all of those things that they were showing there that were like so far out there, like they're all happening. They were foretelling of what's going on. I mean, we exercise at home like in the Jetsons. Everybody's using Zoom, right? So all of these things, so take a look at those old cartoons. They'll give you great insight as to how you can utilize all the new technology.
Excellent. So thank you for joining us. And we will be back next week.
Awesome.